Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving straight into something that is practically a daily puzzle for millions of people. We're unpacking the Halal Radar Guide to Islamic dietary rulings. Whether you're a Muslim consumer trying to navigate the maze of a modern grocery store, or maybe you're just really curious about global dietary practices, this guide is basically your ultimate roadmap. We're going to figure out what is halal, what is haram, and literally everything in between.
But hey, before we even look at the definitions, let me throw a quick question your way. Is chicken always halal? I mean, you'd probably think, well, yeah, obviously it's not pork. Actually, scratch that. The answer is no. As the Halal Radar Guide points out, just looking at an animal species alone absolutely does not guarantee it's permissible to eat. There is a whole other layer to this puzzle, and we are going to decode it together today.
All right, so here is our game plan for today. First, we'll hit the basics of Islamic diets. Second, permissible halal animals. Third, forbidden haram animals. Fourth, the crucial rule of Zabiha. And finally, making informed choices. Simple enough, right?
Okay, let's jump into part 1, the basics of Islamic diets.
So literally everything in Islamic dietary law boils down to just two massive pillars. First, you've got halal. That just means permissible. It's the ultimate green light for what you can consume. On the exact flip side of that is haram, which means strictly forbidden. If an ingredient is haram, it is entirely off limits, no exceptions. Keeping those two boundaries clear in your head is totally essential for everything else we're going to talk about.
Moving right along to part 2, permissible halal animals.
So the Halal Radar Guide gives us a really solid baseline of what's fundamentally allowed in Islam. We're talking your standard plant-eating livestock and poultry here. Cattle, sheep, goats, chickens, ducks, and camels. Because of their nature and what they eat, these guys are inherently in that green light category. But remember that chicken question I asked you a minute ago? Keep that locked in the back of your mind, because just being on this list is really only step 1.
Which brings us to part 3, forbidden haram animals.
Okay, this is where the guidelines set some incredibly clear, hard and fast boundaries. The absolute biggest rule? Pork and anything derived from pigs. Strictly forbidden. And honestly, this can get super tricky. To put it into perspective, pork-derived gelatin actually hides in tons of everyday snacks like gummy bears and marshmallows. It's crazy, right? Beyond pork, the guide also completely outlaws carnivorous land animals with fangs. Think lions, wolves, tigers, and birds of prey like eagles and hawks. It's a very black and white categorization, which makes figuring out what to avoid pretty straightforward.
Now for part 4, the rule of Zabiha.
So remember when I said that just because an animal is on the okay list doesn't automatically mean it's ready for your dinner plate? Well, here is the big catch.
The crucial missing piece is called Zabiha. For those allowed animals like the cows, the sheep, and yes, our famous chicken, to actually become halal, they absolutely have to undergo the specific, mandatory Islamic slaughter method. Basically, Zabiha is a swift, merciful process done by a Muslim where the name of God is invoked right at that exact moment. So if that chicken isn't prepared following these exact steps, boom, it becomes haram. You literally can't eat it, regardless of its species. So you see, halal is just as much about verifying the process as it is about the animal itself.
Now, bland animals have these really strict rules, but things get pretty interesting when we look at the water. The guide points out this really fascinating scholarly nuance. Generally speaking, there's a huge consensus among Islamic scholars that most seafood is just fundamentally halal. You don't usually need to perform zabiha on a fish, for instance. However, there are some different opinions depending on which school of thought you look at, especially when it comes to things like crustaceans or shellfish. So while seafood is generally a much safer bet, the tiny details really depend on which specific tradition someone follows.
Finally, we hit part 5, making informed choices. So how in the world do we actually apply these ancient rules when we're just, pushing the cart down a modern grocery aisle? Well, Halal Radar gives us the super simple 3-step mental checklist. First up, always check the ingredients for pork or pork derivatives. Remember those sneaky marshmallows? Second, verify where your meat comes from. Think back to Zabiha. You have to know exactly how that meat was prepped. And third, honestly, the absolute best shortcut, just look for official halal certification logos on the packaging or the menu. That little logo does all the heavy lifting for you, so you know the whole process has already been fully vetted. At the end of the day, wrapping your head around halal and haram isn't just about memorizing some massive rule book. It's really about cultivating a lifestyle of total mindfulness. The Halal Radar Guide wraps this up perfectly with a beautiful thought: may Allah guide us to what is pure and halal.
It really hits the nail on the head, reminding us that the whole point of these dietary practices is just to make conscious, pure choices every single day.
And that is a wrap on today's Explainer. We've decoded the species list, tackled the absolute must-have rule of Zabiha, and gave you a toolkit for navigating the grocery store. But before you go, I want to leave you with a quick challenge. Based on everything we just covered, next time you're out shopping, what is the very first ingredient you're going to check for? Seriously, think about it on your next grocery run. Thanks so much for joining me on this Explainer, and keep learning.